Welcome to Cosmic Whispers, where cosmic mysteries come alive. Your journey beyond the stars begins now. The universe is composed of countless stars, planets, and galaxies, but the most abundant form of visible matter throughout cosmos isn't solid, liquid, or gas. It's plasma. Often called the fourth state of matter, plasma makes up 99% of the visible universe, from the scorching surface of our Sun to the vast luminous filaments connecting galaxy clusters. Yet despite its ubiquity, plasma remains perhaps the least understood state of matter in the public consciousness. Plasma forms when gas is heated to extreme temperatures, causing electrons to separate from their atomic nuclei. This creates a dynamic soup of charged particles, negative electrons and positive ions, that can conduct electricity and respond to electromagnetic fields. Unlike ordinary gas, plasma displays collective behavior, with movements that can create self-organizing structures far from thermodynamic equilibrium. These self-organizing properties have led some astrobiologists and theoretical physicists to pose a fascinating question. Could life, or something analogous to life, exist in plasma form? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it might initially seem. After all, life as we know it is fundamentally a complex, self-sustaining system that can maintain its organization against the universe's tendency toward disorder. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, Cosmic Whispers is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you enjoy unraveling the mysteries of the universe, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this community together. To understand how plasma might host life, we need to reconsider what life fundamentally is. Earth-based life uses carbon chemistry in a water solvent to create complex, self-replicating structures. But strip away the specific chemistry, and life can be viewed as an information processing system that maintains itself through energy flows, taking in free energy from the environment and expelling waste heat. Plasma environments offer several properties that could potentially support similar systems. First, plasma contains strong energy gradients and flows, providing the thermodynamic disequilibrium that all known life requires. Second, plasma can form filamentary structures and double layers, essentially electromagnetic cell membranes, that could potentially isolate and protect developing systems. Third, plasma can transmit information through waves and field variations, potentially allowing for something akin to metabolism and reproduction. In 1956, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Hannes Alf Venn first proposed that phenomena in plasma might mimic biological behavior. He noted how plasma filaments in the laboratory could split and join in ways reminiscent of simple microorganisms. Later in 2003, plasma physicist Vadim Tsitovich and colleagues published research demonstrating that under certain conditions, particles suspended in plasma could self-organize into helical structures that could replicate themselves and pass on their genetic information. This doesn't mean consciousness-bearing creatures are floating through the sun's corona. Rather, it suggests that the fundamental processes of life, self-maintenance, reproduction, and evolution might be possible in plasma environments through mechanisms entirely different from Earth's carbon-based biochemistry. As we venture deeper into this exploration, we'll examine specific plasma environments where lifelike systems might potentially develop, from stellar atmospheres to interstellar clouds, and the fascinating physics that could make such exotic life forms possible. We'll also consider how scientists might detect signs of plasma-based life and what such discoveries would mean for our understanding of life itself. Life on Earth shares universal characteristics. All organisms maintain boundaries between themselves and their environment, extract energy to maintain order, respond to stimuli, grow, reproduce, and evolve. But these processes are implemented through water-based carbon chemistry, one specific solution to the challenge of creating self-sustaining complexity. When considering possible plasma-based life, scientists must separate life's fundamental requirements from the specific Earth-evolved mechanisms that fulfill them. The essential prerequisites for any life form include a method to maintain organization against entropy, a way to process energy, a mechanism for storing and transmitting information, the ability to replicate, and the potential for evolution through variation and selection. In plasma environments, electromagnetic forces, rather than chemical bonds, could theoretically fulfill these requirements. Plasma naturally forms self-organizing structures through the interplay of electric and magnetic fields. These structures include filaments, sheets, and double layers that can persist for extended periods while maintaining their integrity against disruption, similar to how cell membranes separate living systems from their surroundings. Energy processing, analogous to metabolism, could occur through various plasma phenomena. Plasma systems can absorb energy from electromagnetic radiation, particle beams, or thermal gradients, then dissipate waste energy through radiation or particle ejection. The complex dynamics of plasma allow for energy to be channeled within structures, potentially supporting processes similar to cellular energy management. Information storage and transmission represent greater challenges but aren't insurmountable. In principle, while Earth life uses DNA, plasma systems might encode information in stable electromagnetic configurations, wave patterns, or persistent vortices. Plasma can support various wave modes that propagate information across distances, potentially allowing for something resembling communication or coordination across a plasma-based entity. Reproduction might occur through processes like filament splitting, where plasma structures divide after growing to critical sizes. The physicist Eric Lerner has proposed models where plasma filaments can replicate their specific organizational patterns, including their electromagnetic field configurations. In laboratory experiments, plasma structures have demonstrated the ability to spawn smaller similar structures under certain conditions. Evolution requires both replication with variation and selection pressure. Variations in plasma structures could arise from fluctuations in ambient conditions, while selection would favor configurations that better maintain themselves and reproduce within particular plasma environments. Over time, this could theoretically lead to increasingly complex plasma structures adapted to their specific environments. These ideas aren't merely speculative. The mathematics describing complex self-organizing systems, from Earth's biosphere to potential exotic life forms, share common principles. Stuart Kaufman, a theoretical biologist, has formulated models of autocatalytic sets that can apply to any system with sufficient complexity and energy flow, not just carbon-based chemistry. Plasma physicist Sitovich's work demonstrated that dust particles suspended in plasma can organize into ordered structures capable of replication and information transfer. These structures have been observed to divide and combine in ways reminiscent of primitive cell division, suggesting rudimentary lifelike behaviors emerging from purely physical processes. As we expand our definition of life beyond carbon-water, biochemistry, we open new avenues for exploration. In the next section, we'll examine specific cosmic environments where conditions might support plasma-based life forms, from the turbulent atmospheres of stars to the vast plasma clouds extending between galaxies. Where in our universe might conditions favor the development of plasma-based life? Several cosmic environments offer intriguing possibilities, each with unique characteristics that could support different types of plasma organizations. Stellar atmospheres represent perhaps the most obvious candidates. Our own Sun's chromosphere and corona maintain temperatures between 20,000 and several million degrees Kelvin, ideal conditions for complex plasma phenomena. These regions feature magnetic flux tubes, convection cells, and plasma instabilities that create persistent structures. Solar prominences, massive arcs of plasma extending outward from the Sun's surface, display remarkably complex behavior and can persist for weeks, maintaining their organization despite the chaotic environment. The advantage of stellar atmospheres lies in their energy abundance. With constant fusion reactions powering the star, any hypothetical plasma entity would have access to virtually unlimited energy gradients. The primary challenge would be maintaining organization amid the turbulence. However, magnetic fields naturally create protected regions where more delicate structures might develop. Some plasma physicists have noted that certain solar phenomena exhibit behaviors surprisingly reminiscent of biological systems, including apparent responses to environmental changes. Brown dwarfs, objects too massive to be planets but too small to sustain stellar fusion, offer another potential habitat. These bodies have relatively cool atmospheres, by stellar standards, at 1,000 to 3,000 degrees Kelvin, allowing complex chemistry alongside plasma physics. This intersection might support hybrid systems where plasma structures interact with complex molecules, potentially creating more elaborate information processing capabilities than pure plasma alone. Moving beyond stellar bodies, interstellar and intergalactic plasma clouds present vast potential habitats. The interstellar medium, while extremely diffuse by Earth standards, contains regions where plasma densities and magnetic field strengths could theoretically support large-scale plasma structures. These environments offer stability over extraordinarily long time periods, billions of years, potentially allowing for the gradual evolution of complexity. Particularly interesting are the boundaries between different phases of the interstellar medium, where energy gradients create natural opportunities for systems that can harness disequilibrium. The interfaces between hot ionized regions and cooler neutral zones might function analogously to hydrothermal vents on Earth, localized energy sources in otherwise resource-poor environments. Planetary magnetospheres, the regions around planets, dominated by their magnetic fields, represent another potential haven. Earth's magnetosphere interacts with the solar wind to create complex plasma structures, including the Van Allen radiation belts. Similar but more intense magnetospheric environments exist around gas giants like Jupiter, where enormous magnetic fields interact with plasma supplied by volcanic moons like Io. These systems feature stable, self-organizing plasma structures that persist for decades despite constant energy throughput. Even more exotic environments might exist around neutron stars and black holes, where extreme magnetic fields and radiation create unique plasma conditions unlike anything in laboratory physics. While the intense radiation and gravitational forces might seem prohibitive for organization, they also create powerful energy gradients that could theoretically drive complex self-organizing systems. The diversity of these potential habitats suggests that if plasma life is possible, it might take many different forms adapted to specific environmental niches, just as Earth's life diversified to occupy every available ecological niche. In these environments, electromagnetic forces could drive selection pressures, favoring plasma structures that can maintain themselves against disruption and replicate their patterns more efficiently. To understand how plasma might support lifelike properties, we must examine the specific physical mechanisms that could enable self-maintenance, reproduction, and evolution in ionized matter. These mechanisms rely on plasma's unique ability to form complex self-organizing structures through electromagnetic interactions. One key mechanism involves plasma crystals, ordered arrangements of charged dust particles suspended in ionized gas. First discovered in laboratory experiments in the 1990s, these structures form when microscopic particles, naturally acquiring electric charges in plasma, arrange themselves into crystalline lattices through a balance of electrostatic repulsion and attraction. In microgravity conditions aboard the International Space Station, researchers have observed these crystals, forming three-dimensional structures with remarkable stability. What makes plasma crystals particularly interesting for potential life is their dynamic nature. Unlike solid crystals, plasma crystal structures can heal themselves when disturbed, exchange particles with their surroundings, and even reproduce through splitting processes. Physicist V.N. Tsaitovich and his team at the Russian Academy of Sciences demonstrated that under appropriate conditions, these structures could divide and pass on their specific structural patterns, behavior remarkably analogous to simple biological reproduction. Another critical mechanism involves Birkeland currents, powerful streams of charged particles that follow magnetic field lines. These currents naturally form filamentary structures that can persist for extended periods. In space plasmas, these filaments can develop double layers, regions with strong electric fields that separate different plasma regions, functioning somewhat like cell membranes. These double layers can process energy, maintaining electric potential differences, much as biological cells maintain ion gradients across their membranes. Plasma also supports various wave phenomena that could potentially serve as information carriers. Alpha waves, oscillations of magnetized plasma, can propagate across vast distances without significant degradation. These waves might function analogously to signaling mechanisms in biological systems, allowing coordination across different regions of a plasma entity. For information storage, a prerequisite for any system capable of evolution, plasma offers several possibilities. Magnetic field configurations can remain stable for extended periods, potentially storing information in their specific topologies. Alternatively, dust grain arrangements in plasma could encode information through their spatial patterns. Laboratory experiments have shown that such patterns can be surprisingly resistant to disruption and capable of regeneration when damaged. Perhaps most intriguing is plasma's ability to form self-similar structures across different scales, a property called self-organized criticality. This phenomenon allows for complex behavior to emerge spontaneously from simple physical laws, creating structures that resemble mathematical fractals. Earth's biological systems often display similar self-similar patterns, suggesting a potential convergence between the organizing principles of life and natural plasma dynamics. Energy utilization in potential plasma life forms could occur through several mechanisms. Magnetic reconnection, where magnetic field lines break and reconnect, releasing energy, could serve as a power source. Alternatively, plasma entities might harvest energy from ambient electric fields or temperature gradients. Some plasma structures, observed in laboratory settings, can preferentially absorb certain wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation, a crude analog to photosynthesis. The ability to maintain boundaries, essential for any living system, could be achieved through magnetic containment. Earth's magnetosphere demonstrates how magnetic fields can create persistent boundaries between plasma regions with dramatically different properties, protecting the contained system from external disruptions. Recent computational models have demonstrated that complex plasma systems can exhibit primitive learning behaviors, adapting their internal structures to respond more efficiently to repeated stimuli. This suggests the potential for information processing capabilities, a fundamental requirement for anything we might recognize as life. If plasma-based life forms do exist somewhere in the cosmos, how might we detect them? This question presents astronomical, technological, and philosophical challenges that push the boundaries of current scientific capabilities. The first obstacle is one of pattern recognition. Human perception and scientific instruments are optimized to detect carbon-based life, operating at Earth-typical temperatures and timescales. Plasma entities might function on dramatically different temporal scales, perhaps extremely rapidly, due to the speed of electromagnetic interactions, or conversely, over millions of years in diffuse interstellar regions. Events occurring at these extremes would be difficult to recognize as coordinated lifelike behavior. From an observational standpoint, distinguishing potential plasma life from ordinary plasma phenomena represents a formidable challenge. The Sun's surface, for instance, displays complex self-organizing structures like coronal loops and prominences, arising from purely physical processes. How would astronomers differentiate similar structures created by autonomous self-replicating systems? The answer likely lies in identifying patterns that resist thermodynamic explanation, behaviors too ordered, persistent, or apparently purposeful to result from known physical laws alone. Several theoretical biosignatures have been proposed for plasma life detection. One approach involves searching for electromagnetic emissions with non-random patterns that persist over time, analogous to how SETI searches for radio signals from technological civilizations, but focused on natural plasma emissions. Another involves looking for plasma structures that maintain their organization, despite changing environmental conditions, suggesting active self-maintenance rather than passive physical equilibrium. Spectroscopic analysis might reveal another potential signature, unusual elemental distributions or energy states that defy thermodynamic expectations. Living systems on Earth create chemical disequilibria as byproducts of metabolism. Plasma life might similarly create detectable electromagnetic disequilibria, that couldn't be explained by standard astrophysical processes. The James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, and next-generation radio telescope arrays like the Square Kilometer Array, SKA, offer unprecedented capabilities for such investigations. JWST's infrared instruments can observe cool plasma regions in unprecedented detail, while the SKA will provide sensitivity to subtle electromagnetic signals across vast regions of space. Computational challenges compound the observational difficulties. Identifying potential life signs requires processing enormous datasets to detect subtle, complex patterns. Recent advances in machine learning offer promise here, as algorithms can be trained to recognize patterns without presupposing what those patterns should look like, particularly valuable when searching for truly alien phenomena. Laboratory plasma. Physics experiments provide another avenue for investigation. By creating increasingly complex plasma systems under controlled conditions, researchers can establish boundaries between purely physical self-organization and truly lifelike behaviors. The ITER fusion project and smaller specialized plasma physics facilities offer opportunities to study plasma organization at previously impossible energy levels and durations. Some researchers have proposed directed searches in specific cosmic environments. Jupiter's magnetosphere, where complex plasma structures have been observed by probes like Galileo and Juno, offers a relatively accessible target. The Sun's atmosphere, observable in exceptional detail by the Parker Solar Probe, represents another promising environment. Future missions could include instruments specifically designed to detect patterns consistent with plasma-based life processes. Perhaps the greatest challenge in identifying plasma life lies in our conceptual frameworks. As astrobiologist Sarah Walker notes, we have no theory of life itself, just a collection of examples from Earth. Developing a more fundamental physics-based definition of life remains an active area of scientific inquiry, with ramifications extending far beyond plasma astrobiology into artificial life, complex systems theory, and philosophy of science. The quest to understand potential plasma-based life forms has attracted scientific attention across multiple disciplines, generating diverse theoretical models with varying degrees of scientific acceptance. These range from conservative extensions of known biophysical principles to radical reconceptualizations of life itself. One influential framework comes from complex systems theory. Stuart Kaufman's models of autocatalytic sets, systems where components catalyze each other's formation, creating self-sustaining networks, provide a theoretical foundation that doesn't depend on specific chemistry. These models suggest that any system with sufficient components and energy flow can potentially develop lifelike properties, including plasma systems with their rich electromagnetic interactions. Computational models offer another approach. Researchers like Crisantha Fernando have demonstrated that simulated plasma systems can exhibit primitive evolutionary processes under certain conditions. These models show how persistent structures in plasma might undergo selection pressures, with more stable configurations becoming increasingly dominant over time. Essentially, Darwinian evolution operating on electromagnetic patterns rather than genetic sequences. The plasma universe theory, developed by Nobel laureate Hannes Alfvén, provides another theoretical framework. While controversial in some aspects, its emphasis on electromagnetic forces in cosmic evolution creates conceptual space for plasma-based complexity. Alfvén noted striking similarities between certain plasma behaviors and biological processes, particularly in how filamentary structures interact and evolve. More recently, information theory has provided valuable insights. Physicist Paul Davies suggests defining life as a system that processes and preserves information across generations, independent of its physical substrate. Under this definition, self-replicating plasma structures that maintain specific electromagnetic configurations would qualify as living systems, regardless of their radical difference from Earth biochemistry. The scientific community remains divided on plasma life's plausibility. Skeptics point to significant challenges, particularly the question of information storage. Earth life uses DNA's stable molecular structure to preserve genetic information across generations. Whether electromagnetic configurations in plasma could achieve comparable stability remains uncertain. Critics also note that despite billions of years of cosmic evolution, we've seen no definitive evidence for non-chemical life. Proponents counter that our observational tools and search strategies are inherently biased toward detecting life similar to Earth's. They point to laboratory experiments demonstrating surprisingly lifelike behaviors in complex plasma systems. Plasma physicist David Haas notes, "We've barely begun to explore the self-organizing potential of plasma under cosmic conditions. What we've seen in laboratories may represent only the simplest possible structures. The debate touches on broader questions about life's essential nature. Is carbon's dominance in Earth biochemistry a universal necessity or merely the local solution that evolved in our particular planetary environment?" Astrobiologist Dirk Schulze-Makuch argues that carbon offers unique advantages through its chemical versatility, but adds, different constraints in other environments might favor entirely different biochemistries or something beyond chemistry altogether. Several testable hypotheses have emerged from these theoretical models. One predicts that plasma life, if it exists, would be most likely to develop in regions with stable magnetic fields, moderate energy flows, and protection from disruption, conditions found in certain stellar coronae and planetary magnetospheres. Another suggests that plasma life might leave detectable electromagnetic signatures through organized field perturbations that couldn't arise from ordinary physical processes. These hypotheses have inspired new observational programs and laboratory experiments. The European Space Agency's Solar Orbiter mission includes instruments capable of detecting complex electromagnetic structures in the Sun's corona at unprecedented resolution. Meanwhile, specialized plasma physics facilities are creating increasingly sophisticated experimental setups to test the self-organizing potential of ionized matter under controlled conditions. This interdisciplinary approach, combining plasma, physics, astrobiology, complex systems theory, and information science, exemplifies science at its most exploratory. While definitive evidence remains elusive, the rigorous development of testable hypotheses ensures that speculation remains grounded in physical reality. The possibility of plasma-based life extends far beyond academic curiosity. It challenges our most fundamental assumptions about life's nature and cosmic prevalence. If life can emerge from plasma physics rather than carbon chemistry, the implications for astrobiology, philosophy, and our search for extraterrestrial intelligence would be profound. Most immediately, confirming plasma life's existence would dramatically expand the habitable zone concept. Currently, astrobiologists focus on narrow planetary regions where liquid water can exist. A plasma-based biosphere would invert this paradigm. Stars and interstellar regions would become primary habitats, with planetary surfaces representing relatively barren domains by comparison. The cosmos would suddenly appear far more hospitable to life, though perhaps not to technological civilizations as we conceive them. This paradigm shift would resolve a version of the Fermi Paradox, the apparent contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial life and our lack of contact. If most cosmic life exists in plasma form, it might be ubiquitous yet utterly alien to our detection methods and conceptual frameworks. As astrobiologist Helen Mercer notes, "We've been searching for Earth life elsewhere, not for life as it might actually exist throughout most of the universe." The philosophical implications extend to questions of consciousness and cognition. Earth's neural systems rely on electrochemical signaling, but plasma could theoretically support similar information processing through electromagnetic waves propagating at near light speed. Would such systems develop something recognizable as consciousness? The question intertwines with ongoing debates in philosophy of mind about whether consciousness requires specific biological structures or could emerge in any sufficiently complex information processing system. From a religious and cultural perspective, plasma life would challenge many traditional conceptions of life's uniqueness and purpose. Most religious cosmologies center on planetary life, particularly humans. The existence of fundamentally different life forms occupying the cosmos's vast stellar and interstellar regions would necessitate theological and philosophical reconsiderations about humanity's cosmic significance. For SETI researchers, plasma life presents both challenges and opportunities. Traditional SETI focuses on detecting radio signals or other technological signatures from planetary civilizations. If technological intelligence more commonly evolves in plasma environments, their communications and artifacts might take forms we haven't considered, perhaps modulations of magnetic fields or manipulations of plasma properties undetectable through current methods. Looking forward, plasma astrobiology represents a promising frontier requiring interdisciplinary collaboration. Several research priorities emerge. First, developing better theoretical models for how information could be encoded and transmitted in plasma systems. Second, creating more sophisticated laboratory experiments to test specific hypotheses about plasma self-organization. Third, designing new observational programs specifically targeting potential plasma life signatures in stellar atmospheres and interstellar regions. Practical steps are already underway. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory continuously monitors the Sun's plasma environment with instrumentation that could potentially detect anomalous organization. The upcoming European Space Agency's Plato mission will study stellar atmospheres in unprecedented detail. New data analysis techniques employing machine learning algorithms are being developed to identify patterns in plasma behavior that might indicate non-equilibrium processes consistent with life. Laboratory plasma physics is advancing rapidly, driven partly by fusion energy research. Facilities like the National Ignition Facility can create plasma conditions approaching those in stellar environments, while specialized experiments at universities worldwide are specifically investigating plasma self-organization phenomena. These efforts gradually bridge the gap between theoretical possibilities and empirical evidence. As we contemplate plasma life's possibilities, we're reminded that science progresses by questioning fundamental assumptions. For centuries, vitalism posited an essential difference between living and non-living matter, a view conclusively disproven by modern biochemistry. Perhaps our current assumption that life requires carbon chemistry represents a similar conceptual limitation. The universe has repeatedly proven more creative and diverse than human imagination allows. As we expand our conception of what life might be, we open new avenues for discovery and understanding, not just about potential alien life forms, but about the fundamental organizing principles that govern complexity throughout the cosmos.